Hello, welcome everyone. Thank you for coming to today's Safety Net Shelter Information Session. That's going to happen in the former Soldiers Home. My name is Melinda Vega, and I'm your District 2 City Councilor. I'm accompanied here by our City Manager, Fidel, who will be co-facilitating this meeting with me. First, I want to review a couple logistics to set the tone for today's meeting. This is a multilingual safe space, so we have translation services available for anyone that may need it. Now that I'm here, I want to take the opportunity to highlight the outreach that has been done to date from the moment that we became aware. I want to give a shout out to our State Rep Judith Garcia, Fidel, City Councilor at Large, Kelly Garcia, and our City Council President, Norelis de Jesus. Thank you to our team for going out with me, door knocking, to the abutters the same day the announcement was made, to inform our community members and ensure that their voices were heard. We also organized several community meetings, one which was the emergency meeting that was held already, this one, and we're also working in the neighborhood to organize additional meetings with our neighbors. And lastly, I want to personally thank a couple of my friends that supported me over the weekend and yesterday to ensure that we personally posted the notice to the abutters and our neighbors to make sure that they received the notification, ensuring that the community members were aware of this meeting tonight. Before I review today's agenda, I would like to thank our State Rep Judith Garcia for being here and supporting us throughout this whole process. Do you have any remarks?
Thank you, Councilor Melinda Vega, and thank you for all the municipal leaders and state leaders who are here joining us. I think it's very important to have these conversations. It's very important to host as much information as we can. This is actually the second meeting that we have. We had one at City Hall a few weeks ago, and this is another attempt to inform the community as much as we can. So I am Representative Judith Garcia. I represent Chelsea. I'm a part of Everett, and I'm here to share that when the governor informed me that Chelsea had been selected to host an overflow shelter in response to a rising need for housing, it didn't come to a surprise because clearly there is a high need of housing in this state. So I think that it is very clear. I've been a state representative. I've served with a House that has followed Massachusetts' centuries-old legacy of welcoming immigrants to this state. And I think it is very important for us to continue to step up. Our legislature has stepped up to courageously take up this task. The federal government has not been helping this state. There has been no clear immigration reform passed at the federal level. And this is clearly slipping to all the states across the United States. And this is something that's happening here. There is a rising need for families, for children to have homes. And I also want to clarify that we've led with compassion and empathy as much as we can at the state level to assist the children and the families who are facing uncertainty and fear during dire times, while at the same time attempting to create some parameters to limit the length of stay in the emergency assistance program. And you'll hear about it more because there was a lengthy presentation from our state leaders, and there's also a presentation from the service provider who our local organization, La Colaborativa, was selected to do so, and I trust that they will do so in the best way possible. So you'll hear today that since there is a new state-of-the-art Chelsea Soldiers Home that's currently hosting and providing services to our veterans, the Healy administration plans to repurpose the soon-to-be demolished former Chelsea Soldiers Home to house about 100 homeless families. So I'm glad that we're joined now by our senator, who will also provide some remarks. But you will hear more. You will hear more from our state on what that program will look like and what that focus will be. So thank you so much for everyone who has joined here to help us respond to this need. And we hope to keep you informed and keep this line of communication. I also want to really highlight the leadership of Councilor Melinda Vega, the leadership of Fidel Martes, our city manager, and our council president, who have been constantly there. Gladys Vega, you have a huge task in front of you, but I know that you're remarkable. You've proven yourself time and time again, and we're here to lead with compassion and to take great courage in doing so. Senator.
Thank you, Representative. Good evening, everyone. It's great to be here with all of you tonight to hear from our state leaders, the administration, from Gladys Vega as well, who is the provider and doing an amazing job, she always does, with La Clavativa. But I first want to thank Fidel, and I want to thank Melinda, and going on the list of what the representative said in Norris. When we got the call that this was a possibility of happening in Chelsea, I can tell you that people were ready to step up and help, as Chelsea always has done for many, many years, for decades really. And you know, when we got the call, we also had questions, like many of you probably have questions, about how this was going to look, how it's going to be rolled out, and how was this going to affect the community at large, the neighborhood, the Soldiers Home as well. And the folks to my left, who have been working on this issue throughout the entire state, and I will say, you know, they have done a remarkable job with a task that is almost impossible to be successful with because of all the issues that have been thrown at them all at once. They have stepped up and they have really done an admirable job of how we have, as a state, shown compassion to all the folks that are coming here and all the people that, you know, when I look at this issue, and there's some people that don't always agree, and I'm just going to just say how I feel. You have children and you have families here who are trying to find a new way of life, trying to come to a safer place than where they came from. And these are children. These are families. And when you look at them in the eye, I don't know how anyone possibly could say that we don't want to welcome them. We don't want to do what's right. We don't want to be there for them in a time of need. And that is how I look at this, and that's how I come at it from that point of view, where we know that what they came from is a terrible situation. They've come a long way to get here because they have risked their own safety and their family's safety to do that. And now we are here taking the initiative, in my mind, and doing what's right to provide a place for them to stay. They said temporarily, and I believe that, but also just to do what Chelsea always does and wrap it around folks that need help the most, and always do a good job doing that. So I am just, you know, I'm here tonight to listen to all your questions. The folks from the administration have many answers, and if they don't, I'm sure they will get them for you. And La Clavativa and Gladys, you can't get anybody better, obviously, who knows Chelsea and knows the residents of Chelsea, and who has done so much for so many in this community. So it is like the A-team coming together to try to solve this problem. So I appreciate that. Thank you much.
This way.
Sorry. So for today's agenda, we will have a brief presentation from the state team, and then we will have a short presentation from Gladys and Alex from La Colaborativa. Members of Chelsea PD, Chelsea Fire, and Chelsea Emergency Management are also here and available to answer any questions. We will prioritize the abutters and the residents of Soldiers Home neighborhood for questions first, and then I want to be completely transparent that for the question and answer portion of it, Fidel will be moderating it fully, given that my mother is Gladys Vega. I want to avoid any conflict of interest, and so having that said, you know, just to avoid that, he will be leading that. But I am here for any additional questions, And, I'm not going anywhere. I live in 116 Park Ave. My cell phone number is 857-241-0026. I want to continue having an open line of communication in this matter that is extremely important to us in our neighborhood. Thank you. David?
Thank you. I will hand it off to Aditi in 1 second, but I just wanted to provide some context on the meeting. We are having a hard stop at this meeting at 7:30 p.m. I will stick around. Obviously, I work across the street, and I'm always available for any questions. But a lot of other folks in the room have other commitments, including other meetings. So we will wrap this up at 7:30. The Q&A portion is going to happen at the microphone, and we just ask that you go once and allow everyone to have a turn at the mic. If we have time, obviously, we will allow folks to go again. When you are speaking, we will ask you to keep remarks to 2 minutes. Be concise and essentially, we're hoping you're asking a question, and not making a statement. But if that is your choice, obviously it is your choice. But we are hoping that it is a question. With that said, I'll hand it off to Aditi. Look at that.
Okay. Can everyone hear me okay? Yeah. Great. So first of all, thank you all for having us here tonight. My name is Adit Bashir. I'm Deputy Director of our Cross-Secretariat team working at the state that's been trying to address the challenges we've seen over the last year and year plus. And thank you to all of you. Thank you to the city manager, city councilor, state rep, state senator, and the team at La Collaborativa in particular. We're just grateful to be able to continue this conversation and have it tonight, and look forward to getting to that portion of it. So we'll try to do a quick overview from our team of what we've seen across the state and that history and why we're here today. We'll talk a little bit about the site itself and our plans there. And I know La Collaborativa also has information on their plans as the provider on site. So just wanted to dive into that quickly. And if we can advance the slide. Okay, great, perfect. So we wanted to start with this picture for you all, and I think for folks who were at the last meeting, some of this will be a little repetitive, but important to share it out. What we've seen since the beginning of our administration across our state shelter system, which, as the Senator points out, is supporting Massachusetts residents, it's supporting new arrivals to the state, and most importantly, it's supporting families with children, particularly young children and pregnant women. And what we've seen is that historically, the caseload of that shelter system has been around 3,500-ish families. Actually, usually a little bit below that in the last decade. Oh, sorry, a little bit. Thank you. So if you look at January, which is the beginning of the administration, we're around that number. And over the course of the spring last year, we really saw that number start to rise. And what we saw was that in about 5 to 6 months, the caseload rose from around 3,500 families to above 4,000, adding about 1,000 families over the course of that time frame. And then really in the summer, both Massachusetts residents, but also a number of new arrivals to our state were seeking shelter. And we started to see that what took a couple of months for 1,000 families to be added to our systems then took about a month. And it was really in that fall time frame that you see the numbers really start to spike. And our responses tried to be commensurate with that moment. So in May, we stood up, it's been almost a year now, our Cross-Secretariat Incident Command Center, which is the team that's working across the state every day to try and respond to the challenges that we're seeing. What we've tried to do over the course of the last year is respond in innovative, dynamic ways. So you would see that in the June timeframe and the July timeframe, we launched new family welcome center supports to support new families arriving on site. We deployed the National Guard last fall as we continued to place families in hotel sites and when we were out of providers to support those families. And ultimately in the fall, we felt that through the combination of an unsustainable path for our providers, an unsustainable path from general operations of the system, and just given the demand that we were seeing, that we had to implement a wait list in our system. And so in November of last year, we implemented a wait list, but we continue to try and respond to the moment, even for those families that aren't being placed directly in the shelter system. And over the last few months in particular, we've started to operate new services for those families that are waitlisted, which I'll talk about in a moment, and in particular, operate a new style of congregate setting overflow shelter. And that's the subject of what we're talking about tonight, an overflow shelter that we plan to operate at the Chelsea Soldier, the former Chelsea Soldiers Home. So if we can go to the next slide, if you were backtracking a year ago, spring 2023, the way our shelter system looked was just that dark green box, and we always, we operated the system, like I said, 3,500 families, with the intent of families using it as a place to stay on their path to stable housing. So the goal has always been move them to that purple box, ideally a stable housing situation in the community of that shelter or otherwise somewhere across Massachusetts. As we've seen that green box become overwhelmed by the number of people seeking shelter, as I mentioned, we've started to expand the types of sites and services that we provide. So we changed our intake process. You see that top left dark blue box to ensure that we are prioritizing the most vulnerable families. Those families receive supports in the red box, the clinical and safety risk assessment sites. We operate one in Revere, we operate one in Quincy. Those are for folks, if you were to think about, we're already talking about families with children, but those are, think a pregnant woman in her third trimester, or a young child that was just born a couple months ago. So those families are prioritized in that red box. And then ideally, as many people as we can, we try to place ultimately into our shelter system. But if they are on our wait list, they are not receiving a placement in that red box or dark green box, they're currently on our wait list. And for reference, we have about 700 families on our wait list relative to an overall caseload of about 7,500 families in our system. And about half of those families on the wait list today are in what we're calling overflow shelters. So that's the bottom green, just to orient you. We have two types of overflow shelter, but the primary focus of what we're talking about today is the state-run version, which operates at places like Roxbury. But prior to that, we also operated a site out of 10 Park Plaza when we were responding in December, and we've also opened a site at the Cambridge Registry of Deeds. So I say all of this just to, I think, try to denote the ways that we've expanded our system, expanded the types of sites we've opened up. And as you can tell, we're exploring all different types of buildings, everything from an active office building like 10 Park Plaza to a former Chelsea Soldiers Home. We've worked with UMass Lowell to stand up a new site. We've worked with Eastern Nazarene College in Quincy to stand up a new site. We've continued to try to respond accordingly, given the limitations we've seen in terms of space providers, but still pretty high demand. And just to sort of, I think, put a point on that, if you advance to the next slide, again, just reversing a year ago today, when we operated this shelter system a year ago, we were in 60 communities. Over the course of the last 6 to 8 months, and really the last year, we've now expanded up to 90 plus communities. At the height of it, we were just about at 100. And I think what you would also have seen is that our shelter system has grown in its geographic diversity. It's gone across the state, it's gone south, it's gone north. So we wanted to provide that context as we think about why we are thinking about a site and operating a site in Chelsea in the conversation tonight. And so with that, I'll turn it over to Allison to give you a little bit more detail on the site.
Great. Thank you so much, Odette. I'm Allison Bovell-Yeaman, also with our incident command team, and I'm joined with my deputy here, Blair Brown, as well. So thank you for coming out here this evening and engaging this conversation with us. So we are on track to open the site and welcome families to the site this month. We're planning to keep this site open again because it was a vacant building set to be demolished. We do hope to keep the site open for 6 to 12 months. We're anticipating a capacity of anywhere between 80 to 100 families because we're talking about families that, the exact number of families depends on the number of people in a family. So we're hoping to welcome about 80 to 100 families. As Odette mentioned, and Senator and others, This system is for families, so in order to qualify for the site, everyone must be a family with children or a pregnant person and their partner. The eligibility for the site is conducted by state staff from the Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities, either at our welcome centers or at one of our HLC offices that's co-located with DTA offices, including one right here in Chelsea. So families who are deemed eligible and on the wait list and who don't fall into one of the priority clinical risk categories that Adit mentioned would be eligible to be referred to this site. I will turn it over in a moment to La Colaborativa. We are so fortunate to have such a top-notch organization here in Chelsea who stepped forward to run this site, and they will be providing a range of services, which I know that they will go into a little bit more in their presentation. But I will say, as I turn it over to them, one of the goals of the site is, of course, to provide a safe place for families to be while they are identifying their next steps or waiting for a spot in our EA shelter system. But we also view this as an opportunity to really stabilize families and to really support them as quickly as possible into that safe, stable housing, that purple box that was on the previous slide. And so we know that La Colaborativa, with all of the expertise that they bring in supporting new arrivals and people living with economic hardship, we know that they'll be able to bring all of the services you see here around keeping families safe and fed and warm and supporting them on their journey. So with that, I am going to turn it over to Gladys and Alex.
I'm going to do it from here just because I am nervous and you guys are not going to notice if I'm standing up.
Make sure you use the mic so the cable.
Okay. Perfecto. So, bienvenidos a todos. My name is Gladys Vega. I'm the president of La Colaborativa. I've been with the organization for 35 years. I live in 116 Clark Avenue. La Colaborativa has been my life journey. I have always been working for Chelsea and with a lot of pride. I dedicate probably 16 hours a day to work because it's my commitment, also because I'm raising my 2 grandkids. I raised my daughter in Chelsea, and everything that happens in this community I care deeply about because it's my neighbors, it's my aunt, it's the friends that I went to school with, it's who supported me growing up, and that is why I'm so committed to this cause. ¿Lo puede cambiar? Real quickly, we're just going to, introduction background, eso es importante. So right here, just real quickly, this is what we do with the Day Service Center. So the pictures are pictures from the Day Service Center, something that we're doing at 318. Ya puede pasar. Sí. The leadership team at La Colaborativa, president of the board is Rosalba Medina. I am the president. Dini is the executive president. Alice is the chief operating officer. Ana Sofia is the senior director. And we are all working in this specific project. As you know, for decades, La Colaborativa has been very engaged with Latino immigrants or immigrants from Somali Bantu. Every time there's a group that decides to resettle here, we are that organization that is ready and rapidly available to help. That doesn't mean that we don't help anyone else. That means that we are present when there's a crisis or need, we are there to help. As you know, residents of Chelsea are facing housing. We're not ignoring that. We continue to do a lot of work with our regular families in the survival center. We want to make sure that this whole project doesn't affect our regular residents and citizens of Chelsea. That is why it's so important for us to have this project with lots of resources in another location. So we are recognizing the devastating impact of La Colaborativa, and we immediately decided to support once we got the phone call. At La Colaborativa, we offer different integrated services, and I have to tell you about our experience in the EA shelter system. So last spring, we were in the office, we received a call from a state trooper who basically said, I have families in Logan Airport, I don't know what to do. They're sleeping on the floor. They brought them They said they were gonna bring them from Florida. They got a phone call that Florida was gonna send a group of people. And then on Monday, we told the staff that we may have to work until very late. Nobody came from Florida. So then, 2 days after, we got a group of individuals that came, the state trooper called us, and we had over 40 families that night. And the next day, within 4 days, we found hotels in the area, and then we called the governor, and they allow us to open. We contact an owner of Envision Hotel in Everett Avenue, and we created a hotel there for these families that were there, and we did everything for the first 2 weeks. It was literally health assessment, everything related to making sure that we built a relationship, that we make sure that they vaccinated, that they were going through any medical situations, that there were physicians on site or nurses. We created a nurse station, and immediately we make sure that as soon as we stabilize their health conditions, that we immediately then move them into the different services. It could have been ESL classes, it could be computer classes, it could be rapid reemployment, preparing their resume, making sure that as soon as they were okay, that we were providing immediate services with the idea, as always, as you know, if anyone knows something about me, is that I always say public benefits are for the emergency, for the crisis. I respect public benefits, but we need to be out of them once we are out of the emergency or the crisis. So we did the Envision Hotel in 2023. We have other scattered sites in the city of Chelsea. Locations are confidential. And those are basically for Chelsea residents that have emergency situations, changes of locks when they get evicted, etc. And they show up to La Colaborativa and we have to place. We work very close with our local organizations. They also do similar work, and we work as a team. At La Colaborativa 318, since February 19, we have a day service center. Over 175 people come every day. And one of the first things that we did, we created a list of regulations. If you notice at 318 Broadway, there's no traffic in front, there's not one hanging out. That is because those are the rules of the program. We don't like the hanging out. We want to make sure that if they're at La Colaborativa, they're there to get ESL classes, computer classes, rapid reemployment. They eat while they're doing different things. We're providing where the families are getting classes or something. We're making sure that the kids are okay, that we're taking care of everyone. So we have become pretty abreast with this group of migrants. They're people, majority from Haiti, Colombia, and Venezuela. And once again, from Envision Hotel, we brought a few of the people that we met, a few of the residents to work there so that they can help us with the families. And then we have other local emergency shelter programs in the city of Chelsea that we provide financial assistance when they're dealing with situations related to housing. And feel free to interrupt if I leave anything behind. I'm going to have you talk about the project goals, Alex.
So, good evening, everybody. So just echoing Gladys, we're looking to start this project with an eye towards engaging closely with and respecting the neighborhood. Gladys lives in the neighborhood. I live right down the street outside Carey Square, and it's of the utmost importance to us that we communicate to residents and we work closely with everybody throughout the course of the project. So as we're embarking on this project, one of our overarching objectives is to continue the services we're providing to Chelsea residents. This will occur at 318 Broadway, as well as the Survival Center. And given the scale of the housing crisis in the community, we need to be sure that we're continuing to provide those services while taking on this new project. This new project, where we'll be establishing and operating a new overnight EA shelter, will entail hiring new staff, operating a 24/7 facility at the old Quigley Hospital building. Formerly housing veterans in an assisted living environment, this building is now abandoned and was slated for demolition. So right now, our plan is to take over this building, complete renovations in conjunction with the state, and then operate this with 24/7 staffing and 24/7 security to ensure that everybody inside and outside of the building are safe and included. Throughout the course of the shelter, we'll be employing our model of case management and wraparound services. So importantly, this casts an eye towards economic mobility. Our goal is to get people out of shelter as quickly as possible. We work each day with folks who just want to get a job, they want to find permanent housing, and ultimately they want to take care of their families. We want to ensure that we're equipping folks with the tools and the resources to make that dream a reality as they come through the program. And as we're doing this, we're committed to coordinating closely with the city manager and city council, our elected officials at the state level, and most importantly, residents of the neighborhood through community meetings, ongoing dialogue, and other neighborhood activities that we'll cover in a moment. And throughout the project as well, we're committed to investing more so into the community. So as we'll talk about in a couple of moments, our staffing plan prioritizes local hiring of Chelsea residents, and almost all of our vendors on this project, from the restaurants that will supply us with food to the laundromat that will be taking care of laundry, are all local Chelsea businesses. We want to make sure we're keeping all of these resources in Chelsea for the benefit of Chelsea residents to the best of our ability. Next slide. All right, great. So the project at the hospital right now consists of a 7-day-a-week, 24/7 operation. Right now, we're aiming to operate the site for approximately 6 to 12 months, utilizing 4 floors of the hospital. So on each of the floors, there will be residential settings with spaces for case management, workforce training, and recreational activities, along with common spaces like dining halls and childcare areas. Overall, we'll be serving about 100 families through this project. Primarily, they're families with young children, often children under 5 years old. Throughout the course of the project, we'll have staffing on site 24/7, and we're rapidly hiring new staff, primarily Chelsea residents, in case management positions, shelter support specialists, nurses, mental health clinicians, rapid reemployment specialists, and a host of professions. Additionally, as this will be a dry shelter, we'll have a strict security and entry process. There will be 24/7 on-site security at all times. And moreover, we're committed to collaborating with the Emergency Management Department, Chelsea Police Department, and Fire Department to launch an incident command center to have a public safety presence on site.
Alex, I want to add that our security company will be led by a former Chelsea police officer who recently retired, Jose Ramos, who's here. So he will be in charge of the security company, the 24-hour security company. In addition to that, we have probably 4 of the safety specialists that will be working with Jose. They live in the neighborhood, including your mother, Jose, who also lives in that area.
And not only is this important for general public safety purposes, but we want to ensure that we're engendering positive relationships between guests of the shelter and local law enforcement. So they becoming familiar with the laws of the U.S. and getting to know public safety officials as a trusted resource. And so our operational plan right now consists of utilizing all 4 of those floors for the eligible households. So as Allison mentioned, households are going to be selected by the state and transported to Chelsea through transportation services we're providing. Once they're on site, they'll have to sign our shelter guest policies and adhere to all of our safety protocols. So this will include nightly curfews, an intake and registration system to monitor guests, as well as general emergency and ordinary procedures. We'll be holding regular emergency response planning exercises with the public safety team, as well as working with the Chelsea Police Department on access procedures. Security will be provided on a 24/7 basis in the interior and exterior of the site. This will include real-time surveillance systems as well as general communication with the local police department. And from a guest experience, we'll be providing 3 nutritious, culturally sensitive meals prepared each day by a local business, snacks, and other food products for folks with dietary restrictions. Laundry, cleaning service, and a whole range of professional services that will augment the shelter, again, will be provided by local Chelsea businesses. And I think most importantly, as we're tasked with maintaining this building throughout the course of the project, we want to ensure that those jobs stay in Chelsea and that we're operating this while minimizing impacts to the neighborhood. So we'll have noise monitoring on site and management plans to ensure that there aren't impacts bleeding into the neighborhood and disrupting of others. And then as Glad had alluded to earlier, we'll be deploying our wraparound services model consisting of stabilizing emergencies, working with folks to access household necessities like food assistance, working with them on systems navigation, whether it's accessing SNAP, WIC, and other public benefits on a short-term basis, and then ultimately entering into our workforce development program. So at the heart of this project is economic mobility. We see this as a very robust but strict economic mobility program where residents will come in, receive assistance with job readiness activities, resume creation, workforce training, and ultimately obtaining work authorization. And our team will then work with them in partnership with local employers to land local jobs to support the economy. All in all, most shelter guests we expect will stay for anywhere from 6 to 8 months as we're helping them gain employment in the local economy. Additionally, we'll be offering wraparound services like housing assistance, on-site physical health care, pediatric health care, and mental health care, child care, transportation, and a spectrum of recreational activities, whether that's field trips to local parks or movie nights on Friday nights, to ensure that residents have a well-rounded experience. And as I mentioned, minimizing neighborhood impacts for our team is of the paramount importance. So in addition to having our 24/7 security plan in operation, we'll be looking to coordinate closely with the Chelsea Police Department as well as city officials to ensure that this operation doesn't disrupt the neighbors. Moreover, through our curfew and access control policies and noise control procedures, we're confident that you'll barely notice the site with the exception of school buses picking up students in the morning. Additionally, as this will provide employment opportunities for many residents, we recognize that all those residents will have to commute into work. So right now our game plan is to have folks park in parking lots that we lease underneath Route 1 and shuttle them up the hill to the site for each shift. As the project progresses, we'll be hosting regular community meetings on a monthly basis, operating a 24/7 telephone line where residents can file complaints, and ultimately coordinating closely with Soldiers Home residents, including veterans and staff, to ensure that this project's integrated with the campus. And lastly, to underscore our local hiring approach, we are currently hiring a wealth of residents from Chelsea for all sorts of positions. This includes everything from our senior leadership team down to direct service staff and everyone in between. Moreover, from contracting perspectives, we have local construction companies, laundry services, restaurants and the like, all employed on this project. And so again, if you're a small business owner and you're looking to partner with us, we would welcome that conversation. But all in all, we all see this as an opportunity to catalyze economic growth and keep a lot of the spending in Chelsea for the benefit of residents. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Gladys.
Sure, and I also have to add that please understand that an overflow shelter is something very temporary for the family. So it means that it could be, like Alex says, 6 months to 9 months. It could also be, we have seen that we work with families that, since February 19, and then a month or 6 weeks after, they're gone out of the Chelsea Collaborative during the day. So they get placed somewhere else. I also have to highlight the importance of keeping the neighborhood. Imagine, we are going to take over a building where our veterans live, where they sleep, where they went through heck during the pandemic. We are not ignoring that. My nephew right now is in Iran. When he comes back, we want to make sure that he's well and that he's respected for all the contributions that they all have done for us in the United States, but for the world as a whole. So we want to make sure that none of the families that are there are drastically impacting the neighborhood at all. If there's anything that you have to understand is that we could have had someone else doing this. When the governor called, I was like, Governor, there's no way you can bring another group from outside Chelsea that doesn't know our city, that doesn't know the struggles that we have had with gang, with violence, with anything. We need to make sure that our city remains as it is. And also that we provide all the wraparound services so that people immediately when they're able to find a job, we get them a job and they're, economically sound. And once again, this is not going to impact the residents that we serve. The new building at La Colaborativa will remain that building that provides all the wraparound services. If you notice today, we probably had over 1,000 people, and it was raining outside, looking for jobs at La Colaborativa. We had over 16 to 20 employers, and everyone from the community came out, and that's exactly what we want to be able to do, provide jobs, and especially this project in particular is provide jobs for the Chelsea residents so they know that we want to maintain our neighborhood as safe as possible. With that being said, I want to share my contact information. I'm going to post my number right on the doors of the Soldiers Home. If you have any concern, our staff is going to be having, David, levántate para que vean tu camisa. Our staff is going to have those uniforms so that if you see anyone with that uniform, with those shirts, etc., even during the summer, we'll get t-shirts that are as bright as that so that you can identify a staff member if you're driving by and see something you don't like, and you beep and stop them and say, listen, this is happening, can I reach out to Gladys or whatever, or anyone in the team. I want to make sure that you have access to us. You know, we build this community together, and Chelsea has gone through hell, so we want to make it as smooth as possible, helping these new families, but understand that this is our community, and we want to remain in this neighborhood in particular as it is. Okay, muchísimas gracias.
Okay, thank you.
Now you can open up to questions.
Now we'll open up to questions. So again, you can stand up. The microphone is here on the right. As a reminder, please keep your comments to 2 minutes. Ideally, it's a question, but that is up to you. We will end this meeting at 7:30, and we would like to prioritize the abutters or the members of that neighborhood. So if you can please share your name and address when you ask the question, that will be very, very helpful. Please, on the microphone over here, please. Karu, over here. Testing.
Hi everyone, I'm Kuru Page. I work at Habakkuk in Chelsea, PO Box 50575. Well, I am so honored to be working in this city and also went to high school in Chelsea. Thank you, Sister Gladys Vegas, for taking on this huge task and the whole city. And yes, so when we're talking about public safety, I want to also offer our support, especially not just outside of safety. I'm talking about domestic violence, sexual assault that may happen with the family. So we want to offer the support that we can, especially around resources and training, case management for any family who identify as survivor of domestic violence or sexual assault. And also we know that many of the family who are homeless and also displaced, 62% of whom are also survivor of domestic violence. So we just want to make sure that you have all the resources for the family. Thank you.
Thank you, Karu.
Hi everyone, my name is Jenny. I live on Warren Ave, so right on Soldiers Home area. My question is more towards education. So just to let you know, my almost 3-year-old son is here, and I have to go through a lottery process to get him into the pre-K program. We are exhausted. I asked, why don't we have more spots if we have nearly 100 kids in this lottery system right now? Why can't we open up more classrooms? And the response was that we don't have room. It's not a funding issue. So what I'm going at with this is, you said school buses are going to pick up children. Where are these children going to school? And you're saying it's 80 to 100 families that are going to be infused into our system, and you're looking to get them housing in the area. This means that we have about 80 newborns, children coming into the Chelsea Public School system. So here's my concern as a parent is I have to go through a lottery system. I think every child should get an education, but I also think we need to expand this pool because the people who are already living here can't get a spot in the pre-K system right now. So I would like if you can address this, and how is this going to be addressed for parents? Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Blair Brown. As Alice mentioned, before I did the shelter work, I was Assistant Secretary of Education. So my background is in education. To your question, which is a good one, what's the impact of having these new arrival families or Massachusetts families placed at the Children's Home on the schools? There are federal laws that dictate what, how homeless families are educated. And the first thing for you to know is those families enter the same system that your family would go through. So no one would take priority over your family in a lottery system or otherwise, but they are guaranteed an education from kindergarten forward. So any family that comes into Chelsea, if they are placed here from and haven't had an education in Massachusetts before, they would be eligible at age 5 and over to enroll in Chelsea Public Schools. If they have been in Massachusetts, regardless of how long, if they've been enrolled in another community, they would be eligible to return to that community within a certain distance. So I wouldn't say from the beginning, all the children would necessarily end up in Chelsea, and we see a lot of young kids and as well as older kids. So I think it's a mix, and we've talked to the superintendent, we know where the pinch points are, and we're going to try and be aware of those as we make family placements for the class sizes.
So, and this is not so much for the families coming in. Again, I agree every child should get an education, and that's fine, but what are we doing about the people who live here, the children who live here? Are we also going to expand services?
I think that's probably a separate conversation, and school committee member is going to address your question, I think.
Thank you.
Hi, it's nice to meet you. My name is Sarah Neville, and I live in 40 Eleanor. So I'm the District 2 school committee member for our neighborhood. And thank you, Melinda, for putting this together. Yay, District 2. My son is also in pre-K at the ELC. He's 3 and a half. He's back there. So a few things. The ELC Extended Day Program is only open to families who have both parents either working or in school full-time. These families who are seeking asylum, that wouldn't apply to them. They don't have jobs yet, so they wouldn't be in that lottery. And also, as our colleague says, there's only the requirement to provide schooling to kids from kindergarten and up. So in terms of the pre-K lottery, it's not going to be affected, I don't think. And I completely, 100,000% agree with you that we need to do more for pre-K in our community. So I'd actually love to talk to you more, because I'm trying to make some noise around that and maybe see if we can get some state grants to expand pre-K access in Chelsea. But thank you so much.
Thank you. Anyone else? Please take the mic if you have any questions.
Hi, my name is Paul Texera, 62 Eleanor Street. What is your target date for getting whatever you need to get done at the Quigley Home before people can start moving in?
Thank you for that question. We plan to open in the next couple of weeks. As the local effort team mentioned, they're doing a lot on hiring, preparing the site, all of that. So really focused on getting it open in the next week or two.
Will there be a space there for classes for students, because school will be coming to an end in June? And so is there something going on there where we'll have ESOL classes for the adults, for the children, something to do during the summer?
That's a great question. I appreciate you raising it. So we will have indoor and outdoor classroom spaces for both adult education, like ESOL and computer classes, as well as childcare, so on-site pre-K, as well as youth services throughout the course of the summer. We've been discussing with Blair and Allison over the last week how we can really create an enriching curriculum for youth now that we are approaching the summer. So it is our plan to have a variety of on-site youth services.
Great. And this could be a program model for the federal government. This is really well done.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Hi, my name is Konstantinos Boussios and I live on Eleanor Street, a few houses down from the site. So I have two questions. The first question is, the wave of migrants in Massachusetts, at what rate is it continuing right now? Is it growing? Is the rate of arrival growing? Is it stable? What's going on?
Yeah, it's a great question. So what you saw on that chart previously translated to, at the height of it last summer, about 30 to 40 families applying across our system per day that were eligible. About half of those families on any given day, we estimated were new arrivals, so put it in that 20-ish range. Over the last few months, we've seen that number drop and be steady around 20 to 25 families overall per day. And the new arrivals, again, is about half of that, 12 to 15 families newly arriving per day, applying at our sites and being deemed eligible. So it is lower right now, and it has been steady. I just want to add the caveat that we are constantly observing it, we're constantly keeping track of it, and what you see on the chart is that things fluctuate in part, sometimes seasonally as well, so as we go to the spring and summer.
Yes, that's what I was going to ask next. Seasonality, how does it compare to last year this time?
Yeah, I think what we've seen right now, and you can sort of tell that demand was increasing, and that's reflected in those early months of 2023. I would say demand has been a little bit more stable relative to last year, so it stayed flatter compared to what I was expecting. At that 20 to 25 families per day, half of those which are new arrivals. And I think, yeah, what I should say is, in addition to maybe seasonality, we're hopeful that some of the changes we've made across our system, some of the guardrails we've put in place, including that wait list and the cap that we introduced in November, may have influenced that, but we'll continue to monitor it.
Okay, last question on this topic. Is there any website that we can observe the situation, or we can follow the situation?
Yes, so there's a dashboard that we frequently update on the mass.gov, the Massachusetts State website. That totals the numbers that you see in the system, totals the number of families on the wait list, so we can make sure to distribute that out through the city manager.
So I have one more topic, if I may. So the building, so it was planned for demolition, and now we heard that it's being renovated. So what is the plan for the demolition? And if it's being renovated right now, then are we going to demolish it?
We'll speak first to the comment about the renovation. So the renovations are really repairs to make sure that it's move-in ready. So there were some temporary walls that were put up during COVID that had to come down. So there was, that would have happened part of the demolition as well anyways, but then some additional repairs just to make it, ready for new families to move in, different than the population that was there. So it wasn't a full, gut renovation or anything like that. And then, I don't know, Secretary, if you want to speak to the demolition.
Right, so my name is John Santiago. I'm the Secretary of Veteran Services. So in order to build that new home that we have, that beautiful new home on the hill, we have to demolish the building. It was a part of the agreement we made with the federal government in order to extract the $200 million to build this beautiful home. As you know, many of you who've been there, the current parking lot is at the former Malone Park. Right? So the building will be demolished and will become parking, and the plan is to restore the Malone Park.
Thank you.
Hi there, Lee Kugler. I'm a resident on Eleanor Street, just down the street from Soldiers Home. Just have a question about how can members of the community help out, either with their time, through donations, above and beyond what's already being provided for?
That's that question, and of course I welcome every donation, I welcome every volunteer. As soon as we get the go-ahead that we're ready to move in, I need people to help me assemble cuts, assemble sort of like the teaching spaces, the classroom spaces. So please, I will give you my number as soon as this meeting is over. So you are more than welcome to volunteer. And also if anyone wants to volunteer to teach for anything, you're more than welcome. If you're a resident specifically of that area, I will welcome you to sort of like join us as we put in this whole thing together. Muchísimas gracias. Gracias.
to add to that, and I know I mentioned that I was going to stay out of this, but this is actually something that we, Sarah and I, and actually Victor, today we met and discussed this as well. So this is a conversation that has been started and is ongoing. We already started collecting donations with, our network, our families. This is something, it's a huge undertaking, and I'm very happy that we're getting these type of responses to support our families and welcome them. So we want to welcome anyone that wants to support our families, and something, I want to put a plug for the neighbors that are in District 2. Let's use this as a way to unite and work as a united front in this. And so I welcome all the support, and I mentioned to Victor earlier today when we met, like, I would love for us to all meet and have a neighborhood community meeting, like, amongst our neighbors, so we can begin this dialogue and have an open line of communication. I think, we can work as a united front. Gladys Vega also lives with me in 116, so if you can't find her, you can find me, and vice versa.
Good evening. My name is Joan Rumwell, and sorry I'm late because I missed the best part of it, I think, the panel discussion. But I do want to just say, there's two sides. So thank you for coming here and presenting to the community, but I wonder if it's really necessary in terms of presenting to the community. We have an influx of different folks, right, coming from all over the world here to Chelsea, and I've never witnessed a meeting to set up to discuss what that looks like in our community. So on one side, I'm happy because I guess the community had questions about this population coming in, but on the other hand, did it warrant a community meeting to discuss the fate of these folks coming in? So I know that, I had some information in terms of there's a 2-year plan, right? So they come in for 2 years, they got to get their life together, right? They have to find a job, find housing, be, suitable to stay post 2 years. So it's, my question was, and I missed it and you probably answered it, is what are you doing to prepare for that 2 years, right? So the whole temporary placement, temporary is a loaded word in terms of a 2-year lifespan for folks that are coming from a war-torn devastation to get their life together in 2 years. So I know that's multifaceted and it takes a lot of planning, but I just wanted to know long-term for the 2 years, are they, followed and ensured that, they're getting the jobs, they're getting the schooling, they're getting the housing, to make sure that when that 2-year mark comes, that they're able to stay to, be a part of us.
So, Joan, thank you for your statement and your support, and especially, you're right, but it was that important to put a meeting together for the residents, especially because we want to make sure that the residents know where to access us and understand what's happening there. In terms of all the wraparound service, we're going to do exactly what we've been doing at the Day Service Center, which is computer classes, ESL classes, rapid reemployment. So for example, we took families that lived in, because they come to Chelsea, but they sleep in Cambridge. We took them on a filter. Once we did their resumes and they have work authorization, we took them on a filter to Cambridge, and we took them to Galleria Mall and other companies near where they sleep to find them jobs. 9 of them were hired. So that's what we're going to be doing. We're going to make sure that they get the skill sets necessary. And what I mentioned in the beginning, I'm a strong proponent that public benefits are just for that emergency, that we need to make it on our own, that we need to be strong, get the skills necessary to make it, and to continue to sustain America with our work, right? And then just to correct you, my understanding is that this project is only 6 to 12 months. So So that's my understanding. So I'm hoping, and that families, one of the statements that I made before was that families that the overflow shelter is just very temporarily, because it may be that they find a real shelter elsewhere and they will be transferred. We have had that experience since February 19. We begin to work with the families, and then they get transferred to Pittsfield, for example. So those, sometimes they stay 2 months, sometimes they stay 4 months, but the ones that we have seen, they've been moving accordingly when there's an open space in a shelter. But I guarantee you, and you're more than welcome to visit and see how we are going to structure the day service center. You're more than welcome to also go. As a member and a leader of our community, it's very organized. And we want to make sure that it remains like that, especially because we're not on Broadway. We are in the House of the Veterans. And that is so important for us to keep that neighborhood intact.
Yeah, okay, thank you. But I do know the 2-year period is not in terms of your service, but it's in terms of the immigrant,
yes.
migrant. So that's what I was referring for the 2-year period. And I do also want to just put a plug in that Chelsea Black Community, as well as Councilor Kelly Garcia, is forming a drive for school supplies for the students that are coming in. So throughout next week, we'll be having a big box at 56 Washington Ave if you want to drop by with food, school supplies for the children that will be in our school systems, book bags, pens, papers, everything and anything. Please bring them back. Nothing used, we want brand new notebooks. But please, feel free to stop by 56 Washington Ave with supplies for school supplies.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Over here.
Good evening, thank you all. This is wonderful that you have an open forum on such a sensitive topic in Chelsea. And I will say that I am the executive director of CAPIC, and I do know that in other areas, Chelsea's such a welcoming community. Kudos to you, Gladys, for undertaking a project of this magnitude, and I have no doubt in your ability to be able to provide the service, because that's what you do best. It's great to see that in this community, we're not having the dissension, the arguments, the back and forth about the migrant community that's coming in, because I know a lot of other communities that migrants are coming into the communities, they're supporting them with temporary shelter, and there is a lot of dissension among people who are already waiting for services on the list, and then they see that migrants are coming in, and they're saying that these people are getting services a lot quicker than we are. So there's a lot of dissension, there's a lot of back and forth around this. I'm so thrilled that we don't have that here in Chelsea. I'm so thrilled that we are a welcoming community, and we're going to use our resources to the best of our abilities to make sure that the needs of these families are being met. My question is, the long-term plan. I have no doubt in Gladys's ability to provide the services and support that we need, that these families need in the interim, but what is the long-term plan? I mean, what happens after the 12-month period is over? Are these families, what is required of these families? Or do they just spill into the community? Or is there something else, a longer-term plan?
Yeah, Fidel, if we could go to that slide with the system, I didn't want to sort of use that to illuminate the answer here, and thank you for the question. I think the first thing that I would say is, in addition to the services being provided at this site, families receive some of those services even before they enter our site. So at our family welcome centers, we are trying to engage with them on that front, doing things like helping them file for work authorization and otherwise. In addition, if they move into our shelter system, they're continuing to engage with the services that Gladys described, working on paths to not just employment, but also to find stable housing. And we continually have providers working with them to say where and how can we help you take advantage of state supports, the community you're in, and try to find a stable situation, which is that purple box. So our long-term plan, in part, is ensuring that we're constantly working with families day in, day out to ensure that they are moving towards stable housing. I think in addition to that, what I would emphasize is we are continuing to work with, in our state-run system, in the state-run overflow shelter system, we've announced guardrails around making sure that families need to engage with these supports in order to continue to stay in the system. We also know that that's an active conversation that's happening in the legislature around the actual EA shelter system. So I think what you will see is that we'll continue to try and meet this moment, provide all the services we can for families, while trying to address sort of ensuring that families are continually moving to stable housing.
Okay, thank you so much. So your answer, if they move into stable housing, and I just don't want people to get this picture distorted somewhat, but we already have the housing crisis. We already have, so I'm thinking in my mind, okay, so we have an influx of additional people needing services on this already strained housing sector. I mean, we just don't have the stock right now. I mean, are you envisioning us having the stock in 12 months or, any time after that, housing stock? Because it's unrealistic to think that we're going to provide these services and these folks are going to receive these services, receive a job, and be able to afford housing. Because that's the end goal. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
But it's unrealistic to think, I mean, given the state that we're in right now, I think the timeline should be a lot longer than 12, 24 months. You know what I'm saying? That's what I'm saying.
I totally hear you. And I think that's why one of the governor and the lieutenant governor's top priorities, if not the top priority for their administration, was the filing of a housing bond bill, which was geared towards opening up and trying to make accessible, affordable housing, both for first-time home buyers, public housing, all housing levels, because we all clearly recognize that there is just a housing shortage. Accessibility, availability of housing stock all across our Commonwealth. And if our ultimate goal is that purple box of exit to stable housing, we need to have that availability, not just for new arrivals that might be coming or the domestic families that are currently in the system, but others that might be our kids that are buying houses or renting first time. But we are, the housing is the top priority and our biggest concern as a state, but absolutely hear what you're saying, and that's why this bond bill will hopefully, if it passes, just looking at my colleagues down the line here, will hopefully make things a little bit easier for everyone in the Commonwealth.
Okay, I appreciate that. I think that things have to happen simultaneously.
Yes,
absolutely. You know what I'm saying? We can't have this thinking that realistically that this is going to be the end point for a lot of our folks that are coming in, a lot of the newly arrived migrants, and the end point for folks that we already have in the system. You know what I'm saying? So, and I also want to know if we are tracking the progress to make sure that we're in line with what you propose.
Yes, that's a great question, and it is something that we are on the tracking piece, constantly looking at our data and really working with our providers on the ground, working with partners, working with what we're hearing from families to really try to continue to improve the systems that help support families exit to stable housing, recognizing that it's multifaceted. It's needing to increase incomes and to find places where people can afford and rent. And then looking at all of our policies from our rental programs, home base, other voucher programs, to make sure that when those are available, that families can access them and then to rent up. And so absolutely agree with you that we are trying to move so many things on all fronts, and the governor creating a housing secretariat to build out a whole secretariat really dedicated and focused on this, in addition to filing the housing bond bill and really trying to acknowledge that this is a pinch point for so many people across the Commonwealth, that we need to really heads down, not just one secretariat, but across secretariats, really as an administration solve for. And I think your point is well taken. It's not, this is not the answer for the long term. This is a step in the direction, and we're really trying to sort of think about what is that long term for the residents of our Commonwealth as well as our new arrivers.
Yeah, thank you so much. And I just one more thing. Gladys again, I just think that you're doing amazing. This is wonderful that you're doing this. But my thing is, all Gladys's resources, everything that she puts into these families, all the resources and services that she provides for the families are not going to amount to much if we don't have that support from the state, if we don't have that housing piece, if we don't have additional resources from the state. So we all have to work together to make this work. That was my point. Thank you so much.
I know about, oops. Look,
Is it working? You don't know? No.
So I know I've already spoken, but if I may ask a follow-up question on the previous speaker. So right now we have a history, we have like a track of already more than a year, right? We saw in the previous chart that we started having migrant families in Massachusetts since January 2023, if not sooner, if not earlier. So far, what is the track record of people moving to the purple box? What percentage?
Yeah, so what we've seen, I'll just give you March, for example, close to 270 families moved to that purple box last month. And we continue to see that number about month over month right now. It's sort of been between the 200 to 250 mark over the last few months. So I hope that helps answer the question.
5%? That's about 5%, right?
Yeah.
5%. The families, how many families?
Of the overall caseload.
Yeah.
I mean, it's good math. No, I think that is true. But the question is really about, are we seeing the number of exits match the demand we're seeing on a daily basis? And so we're trying to work towards, first, ensuring that we have as many exits per day or per month as we see people showing up. So that number is more right now. I think we are looking at 400, 500 families showing up per month, and we're close to 300. So we're working on closing that gap. And then eventually, ideally, we get above that demand number and start to reduce the piece.
So has the gap been closing?
Yes. I mean, I think we were at around 200. I mean, honestly, we were close to 170 families per month in the fall timeframe. And in the last few months, we've now been around 250, 260, 270 families per month. So we've seen an upward increase because of the work we've been doing, I think, with adding providers on site, trying to redouble our efforts at all parts of the system to ensure families are supported. And I think we're starting to see the positive benefits of that all-of-government approach and sort of all-of-services approach to supporting families.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds like for right now, I mean, I don't know what the rate is. It may not be, the 6 to 12 months of the revision, it might not be enough for people moving to the purple box, according to what the data is today. So is there any place, any website where we can keep track of that data as citizens? Know how many of these people are graduating toward the more stable situation?
Yes, definitely. That mass.gov website, I just don't remember the URL off the top of my head, but I want to make sure we get it.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, I think we're going to go for one more. Tilly, Counselor.
Hi everyone. This isn't a question or a comment, more so a call to action. I am partnering with the Chelsea Black community to do a school drive, school supplies drive. And so if you have markers, if you have backpacks laying around, please come on over and donate. I want to make sure that these students are are well prepared for the first day of school when they join Chelsea Public School System. Thank you. Oh my bad. I was at parent-teacher conferences, that's why I'm late. Sorry. Thank you for sharing. Goodbye.
I noticed you've been standing there. Do you have a question?
Sure. Hopefully it's quickly. So I think I definitely want to echo what has been said. This is really kind of like a housing crisis issue that we're trying to face. And to the politicians, one of the questions that I will have is, policy was mentioned, housing bond bill. What can we do as a community in order to ensure that we can meet the moment and ensure that there is a stable home for people to move to? So that'll be what at the state level, local level, or federal level, what are we trying to do in order to meet the moment?
Jose, first of all, thank you so much for that question, because you're an outstanding leader when it comes to really addressing the need for affordable housing. And I'll give the senator also an opportunity to speak, but I think that the deep message here is, for community members, this is a big topic. It's historic. The governor has proposed to offer, is basically asking us to invest $4 billion towards creating and preserving affordable homes and just creating the pipeline of housing in the state. So the call to action to community members who are here present today and who are watching, organize, advocate, call us, email us, because that's coming before us in May. The House is seeing it in May. I know the Senate will be seeing it soon after. And it's important for us to hear from you that this is important. What aspects of that bill is important? It's all accessible online. It's the Affordable Homes Act. Look it up. It's on mass.gov, if I'm not mistaken. Read about it more and reach out to us, because I think your voices are important and we need to step up to that task. We have a lot going on. We're doing the best we can with what we have. And we're trying to lead during challenging times. As I said again, and as I said before, the federal government is not stepping up. So there's a big responsibility for state leaders, as you know, the government's administration, the senator, and myself, and that's spilling over to our municipal leaders. So advocate, organize, email us, reach out, and I'll give it to the senator to see if there's any more advice that you may have.
Ditto. So everything she said, as was mentioned, we have historic investments in housing. We haven't had a bond bill of this size and magnitude since I've been there. I've been there 14 years. And we have not had the investments in housing, frankly, from administrations in the past when it comes to housing. That's why we're in this crisis right now, because we haven't kept up with the numbers that we have seen. And now everything is coming perfect storm, right? So it's a perfect storm. So our governor and lieutenant governor have seen it. They made a campaign promise during their campaign for governor, lieutenant governor, to step up and make housing a priority. And they have done that. We have it now in our hands in the legislature. And as was mentioned by the representative, the devil's in the details. So $4 billion is a very big number to spend on housing, but we also want to make sure that the investments are in the right places, right? So people in Chelsea need housing now. We don't have time to wait for bills to go through the process and wait several years for the funding to come to fruition. So there's two steps. And a housing bond bill is passing a bill and getting the money in the hands of the community. Two steps. So once the bill is passed, which it will pass very soon, it'll pass in May, and then we'll have it passed in the Senate, probably the month after that. Go to conference committee, it'll be reconciled. By the time the summer begins, the middle of summer, there'll be a bond bill on the governor's desk to sign. That will happen. We can't just celebrate at that point, because we know that bond bills do take time to get money into the hands of people. And the city manager is nodding because he knows how bond bills work, because we have to just make sure that the allocation of funds in the right places is done in an expeditious way to get this into the hands of people in our communities like Chelsea and our gateway communities. I feel, I'm going to be selfish here, our gateway communities need help the most and need help quickly. I always say at the State House, I don't want my fair share at the State House. I want more than my fair share. Because our communities that I represent, particularly Chelsea and Everett, need more than our fair share, because we have more than our fair share of obstacles and challenges that face our residents and our students and our children and our families. So we have to two-pronged approach, pass the bill, and then advocate just as hard to get that money in the hands of our communities.
In regards to that, so I think housing insecurity doesn't really care about your immigration status, right? And I really want to echo what was said during the presentation, that we need additional resources, not just for the folks that are going to be in the overflow shelter, but our community as a whole. I'm blessed that I get to work in the community I live. I support food pantries, and I see an influx of Haitian Creoles coming out, especially. And I'm really concerned about how to adequately support them, especially when there's a language gap. And I think through your learning, as you know, you're providing services, it will be great if you can kind of like share best practices with other service providers that may provide support to the families that are coming. Just because, as you mentioned, you're going to take a lens of trauma-informed practices. So really learning how to better care for the folks that are coming, that will really help me as I'm trying to do my work. So that's kind of like my task for it all.
Thank you, sir. Okay, with that said, we're all, okay. Go ahead, Sarah.
Do we have a minute?
1 minute.
Okay, I had a quick question, which is this a congregate space, or are the families going to have their own rooms?
It is congregate space.
Yeah, I think that's one thing that I think has kind of been glossed over in this presentation, is the fact that this is an overflow site. And why are we having overflow sites in the first place? It's because the state made a decision to cap it to cap the emergency shelter system to 7,500 families, and that cap wasn't there before. And I just like, as we talk about the advocacy that's needed, I think that we have to be really honest in the fact that we need to be advocating for the state to do better in terms of having equitable policies about the shelter system, and even with these new regulations that they're going to be putting in place to check everyone's, like whether everyone's participating in case management and all of the new paperwork that's going to be putting on service providers just to check a box to try and make sure that people deserve these services, and putting this cap on, and claiming that Massachusetts doesn't have the resources to provide for more than 7,500 migrant families, or families, because it's not just migrant families, when just last year they decided that their biggest priority was to change the tax code to give out $1 billion in tax breaks to the rich. Like, I think that these are all things that really need to be a part of this conversation, and yeah, that's all I have to say. Thank you so much.
I think I'm going to let Blair answer that after the meeting. That sounded like a big question, Sarah. Thank you, everyone, for coming tonight. I know a few of us are going to hang around and answer questions, but I just wanted to break the meeting officially. Obviously, I work in City Hall. I have a few business cards. Please approach me with any questions, and I know Councilor Vega as well is available to answer any questions. Thank you so much for coming tonight. Appreciate it.
Thank you.